I've been asked to do a welcome and introductions, and so I'd like to welcome everyone here. Chief Justice Tani has served as Chief Justice of California Supreme Court for nearly 10 years now. And during that time, the Chief has championed the cause of bail reform. She leads an initiative called the Power of Democracy to support civil discourse, education for students. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, the Chief serves as chair of the California Supreme Court Historical Society Board of Directors. Next up, I'd like to introduce Justice Catherine Mitchell-Werdiger, who's been a champion of environmental law, who recently retired after 23 years as Associate Justice of the California Supreme Court. Last year, Justice Werdiger established, in honor of Selma M Smith, a student travel grant to help fund California legal history research. Justice Werdiger continues to serve as a longtime member on the Society's Board of Directors. Next up is Selma M Smith, whom we all know, formerly from the law offices of Moydell, and Smith. I hope I didn't miss anyone there. Selma has been a leader in the legal profession generally, and specifically in the National Association of Women Lawyers Association. In addition to being a longtime member of the Society's Board of Directors, Selma is not only chair of the Publications Committee, but she is the editor-in-chief of the Society's journal, California Legal History. In 2007, Selma initiated the Society's writing competition, which was renamed in her honor by the Society in 2014. And although Selma turned 100 last year, her powers of discerning first-rate writing have not diminished. The winning submissions this year are the best I've ever seen, and this is a tribute to Selma and her legacy. Thank you. Excuse me, Chris, do we know if Taylor's going to be coming?
I just got a message from our first place winner. He will join us now.
Very good.
You just asked and you just got it at the very moment it happened. So
Thank you, Selma.
What delayed him? And I do want to share this with you. His wife just gave birth, and he has been very carefully being with her at this time. And for I can say, he confessed. He came out with it. He said, "I completely forgot what time it was," and she was in the hospital. Baby was just born, and he did not want to miss this. And I'm sure will be able to give him congratulations. I want to say in person, but I can't say in person. But it will look like we are all in person. And so you see, we have something from beginning to end here. And actually, I do want to thank Richard very much for, he has done a very selfless kind of thing in being here and with us, because he already was scheduled for surgery. Let us begin now. And again, thank you, Richard. And I just want you to see how much that means to everyone. Yes, and at that point, I hand that over to you to do the guiding along of the rest.
Now we have the student presentations. Each one of you, starting with Taylor, Gus, and then Brittney, if you could introduce yourself, summarize your paper for a couple minutes, that would be great. Starting with you, Taylor.
Thank you very much. My name is Taylor Cozzens. I just completed a master's program in history at the University of Oklahoma, and I'll be starting the PhD program this fall. The paper that I wrote looks at the California Rural Legal Assistance, a legal service agency from the era of the War on Poverty, and specifically the agency's efforts to help mostly farm workers, migrant farm workers. And I was interested as I've studied that agency. I first started by looking at sort of their efforts to ban the short-handled hoe in California agriculture. And from there, I looked at their work related to environmental justice, protecting workers from pesticides and other environmental hazards. But as I worked on those other projects, I kept coming back to this really dramatic stand in some way between Governor Ronald Reagan and this agency. And so that's what this paper was about. It was about Reagan's efforts to discredit and ultimately destroy this agency that the federal government was funding. But ultimately, he was unsuccessful. But it was a very, to me, very entertaining and dramatic and important story because it gets at, I guess, the legal representation of Latino, mostly Latino farm workers who had not had representation prior to that point. And I really enjoyed writing the piece. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Gus, would you like to introduce yourself and your paper?
Hi, I'm Gus, 2020 graduate of Berkeley Law, and my paper is about juvenile transfer, which is the process by which the juvenile court waives its jurisdiction over a juvenile defendant and transfers their case to adult court. And in the paper, I was trying to do three things. The first part sort of maps this theory called the cycle of juvenile transfer, the cycle of juvenile justice onto transfer policy in California. The cycle of juvenile justice is a widely accepted understanding of the development of the juvenile court over the 20th century. And I argue that California's transfer policy follows a similar arc. At the turn of the 20th century, the lenience that the juvenile court was founded on basically meant that there were no rules governing transfer at all, which led to all kinds of abuses, including what I identify as a transfer project, where older, quote unquote, incorrigible boys in California's early reform schools were surgically sterilized. And then harsher punishments arose out of the increased crime of the Great Depression. Transfer process sort of became more punitive so that it was easier to transfer kids to adult court. But the deaths of two Mexican-American boys, Benny Moreno and Edward Leyva, in state custody in 1939 LA led to calls for more lenient treatment. And then federally mandated procedural rules were supposed to help alleviate some of the excesses of juvenile court punishment, but in sort of the middle of the 20th century, but the tough on crime era in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s brought some of the harshest punishments back into vogue. And in the last few years, we've sort of entered a period of backlash to these tough on crime policies, including the California's punitive transfer policy. The second part of my paper is about SB 1391, which took effect in 2019 and made it impossible for California's juvenile courts to transfer kids to adult court until they turn 16. And prosecutors are currently challenging the constitutionality of that law, and the courts of appeal are split. The vast majority are in favor of upholding it, and I think, and I argue in the paper that majority of the courts of appeal are right. And the Supreme Court is hearing the case and will decide in the fall, probably. But I think the most interesting question is sort of how to break out of this cyclical pattern. And that's the subject of the third part of my paper. Thomas Bernard, who's kind of the father of this cycle of juvenile justice theory, casts it as basically inevitable. But I think there's real promise in abolitionist organizing happening in California right now, particularly recent successful calls to defund school police and reinvest money in transformative justice projects. I think movements led by groups like the Black Organizing Project in Oakland and Youth Organized California might actually be able to keep us sort of in this current lenient moment in the cycle of juvenile transfer.
Thank you very much, Gus. And then finally, with you, Brittney.
So hi, I'm Brittney Welch. I was born and raised on a farm in northeastern Ohio, about an hour from Cleveland, and the farm is actually where I spent all of my summer while working remotely for the Department of Justice's Antitrust Division. Like I said before, I'm currently a 3L at Moritz College of Law at Ohio State. I'm in Columbus right now, and I'm really passionate about public interest work, and I hope to have a career working in government someday. I'll actually be clerking for a state Supreme Court after I graduate in Vermont, which is a place I've never been. But as a history nerd, I can't wait to go and dig into New England's history. My paper was actually inspired by my 1L summer job. I worked for the Department of Transportation in DC. I didn't work on the rule that I wrote about, but I was in the Federal Highway Administration, but it was something I heard about from afar. So my paper is about the One National Program rule, which is a rule that was promulgated by the current administration, which destroys, in my opinion, the iterative federalism scheme created by California in the realm of environmental regulations in favor of a national fuel emission standard, which is much less considerate to the environment. It examines the deeply embedded aspects of federalism in California's Clean Air Act waiver, which they've had for quite a long time, and which has enabled and continued to enable California to be a leader in auto emissions regulations for half a century. California's high environmental standards of regulation don't only touch California. There are about 120 million people that reside in states that have adopted California standards. And the number is even higher when you consider that states bordering those compliant states can sell the California compliant cars as well. So in my paper, what I do after discussing the history is I propose a framework that emphasizes the central role this history of federalism should play in any analysis of an eventual court's decision on the rules. And there are, in litigation right now, some cases related to the rules. And overall, my paper concludes that the continued existence of California's ability to opt out of the Clean Air Act standards and go above and beyond those with their own emission standards is not only essential to advancements in environmental regulations, but it's essential to the vitality of modern day federalism itself.
Thank you very much, Brittney. I'm going to go off script just a little bit and ask a question. It's really interesting to me that Brittney with your paper and Taylor with your paper, they're almost like bookends, in that Taylor is writing Taylor's writing a paper about the success of the federal government and imposing a standard and not getting it overturned or somehow sabotaged by Governor Reagan. And then Brittney, with yours, you're basically touting federalism in that, gosh, these states should have the right to go and do what they want to do, and kind of at odds with Taylor's paper. Any comments?
Taylor, you can go ahead first.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very, it is ironic. I think it all depends on, I mean, the easy answer is that it's political, I suppose. Whoever is in the Oval Office and whoever is in Sacramento, and their policies, at different times disagree, but in different ways. I think in the case of California, after Reagan, Governor Jerry Brown, I'm thinking of Miriam Powell's recent book, The Browns of California, but so I think Governor Jerry Brown, both of his terms were very fundamental in perhaps moving California towards the direction that that Brittney's paper sort of analyzes.
And I think I found it really interesting while I was doing my research. Federalism is usually a term I've almost always associated with a conservative viewpoint. Like, that's what you hear when federalism is touted. And I hadn't really looked in the environmental space before, and it kind of amazed me how federalism was being used in a way that I had never looked at and I had never seen. So I think it was a learning lesson for me that sometimes and again, federalism, it's great if you agree with the point of view, but at the same time, it's really easy to flip back on the other side and be like, oh, well, actually, I don't agree with that kind of federalism. So I think it's just been a learning lesson to me in a lot about like how these tools can be used for things you might agree with and things you might not agree with.
Very good. And Gus, does your paper fit in somewhere in between this, or is it a case study in and of itself?
Yeah, maybe. The sort of federal interplay, I guess, comes in more with Earl Warren, who was a really important player at multiple stages in the development of juvenile policy in California. First as Attorney General, when he instituted a lot of reforms, including creating the California Youth Authority, which was the youth prison system through the rest of the 20th century. And then as governor and Chief Justice, he wrote some of the most important U.S. Supreme Court cases about juvenile law, including in Ray Galt, which guaranteed due process rights to juveniles. So that's sort of the federal through line I see. Definitely some interesting federalism questions there too.
Very good, very good. Well, thank you all. Going back onto the agenda. Sorry about that, Selma. The next in line, Chief, if you have some closing remarks.
Well, thank you. I know listening to your descriptions of these distinguished works that all of us will benefit because of that inspired writing. I found all of your subject matters very interesting, and hearing you describe them as a jurist, I know Kay Werdiger also, probably light bulbs were going off in our heads thinking about well, what you wrote about, Taylor, regarding the struggle and conflict and power and forcing policy, and how the relationship of the three branches of government makes a difference, and brute power or incentivizing action. And I think those of us who either still remember the Reagan years or remember jurists from the Reagan years or have dealt with policies in the Reagan years will find it fascinating actually, when you talk about CRLA. Plus, you know, Justice Cruz Reynoso is a founder and awesome mega star of CLRA and served on our court. And then after he left our court, he went on to teach young minds in law school and considered still today to be an iconic influence in California policy. And then I think of Gus's subject matter about juveniles. And again, federal government plays a role in the sense that while it doesn't fund it like CLRA, it certainly started with the Roper-Miller line of cases where Kay and I are very familiar with a young, growing juvenile mind, and the way the courts have finally begun to humanize our approach to the juvenile mind and rehabilitation. So we watch with fascination the entanglements of transfer now at the California Supreme Court having to do with Prop 57 and others. And then, of course, I seriously enjoy Brittney's emphasis on federalism, because this is what I try to preach over at the legislature when they get out of their lane, violate separation of powers, and tries to tell the judicial branch what to do. Or often I hear it when the judicial branch at the state level tries to guide the trial courts at the county level. And I find federalism fascinating. I wish more people knew about it, more people respected it and thought about it in an abstract way. I think it would improve our policies, at least in California. And so I'm greatly excited and inspired by your minds thinking about this and your view and approach. All of these issues come to us at the Supreme Court, brought to us by good attorneys like Richard and Selma, and this is what moves policy forward. So thank you for this opportunity. I'm excited and impressed.
Thank you very much, Chief. Justice Werdiger?
Yes, well, I enjoyed the chief's remarks, and I enjoyed the image of the chief trying to educate the legislature. But if anybody could do it, she could. First, I want to congratulate Taylor on a new baby. Am I right? Did he leave us?
No, I'm here. Yes, the baby just barely arrived. Thank
My
you
goodness,
very
is
much.
this a baby boy or
Yes.
girl? A baby boy?
Girl,
And what's her
girl,
name?
I'm sorry.
Her name?
Eleanor?
Well, congratulations to your wife and to you. And we're glad that you could still make an appearance. At least you didn't have to fly to California. So, all
Yes,
as
yes,
been said
thank
by
you.
the chief so completely and eloquently, all your topics touch us in the judiciary and us in California. I was interested that you looked to Ronald Reagan as governor, which so many people forget that he was governor of the state of California before he became president. And I do remember when the CRLA was, going into effect and the issues of that time. And on the juvenile transfer, with Gus telling us about the juvenile transfer cycle, as a judge, I've watched that, I've lived through it, I've suffered through it, and it's an ongoing issue that this state faces. And finally, the federalism about stop, turn the car around. We are living that now too. So these are very timely, very important topics, and I congratulate all of you for coming up with these. And I think it's unprecedented that each and every one of you would be published in our California Supreme Court Historical Society Journal. And that's because in addition to the first place winner, the other two are also worthy of publication, and will get the exposure they deserve. So congratulations to all of you.
Thank you very much, Justice Werdiger. And Selma?
Many, many thoughts have already been going through my mind, as I'm sure it is with yours. And I wanted to say simply that this has been quite a learning experience. This is the first time, of course, by force of circumstances, that we are in this particular vogue of doing it. And I'm looking forward to our ability to return to, shall I say, on behalf of all of us, to where we can all sit together and enjoy each other's personal company as well. But I'm very grateful that we have this, and I shall have many occasions to look back. I will be, as each of you spoke, I was making mental notes, and when I see your names again in any of your activities, whatever, I will have an extra, without you even knowing it, I will be having an extra heartbeat for your endeavors and the accomplishments that you've gone through. So I shall not lose you. I shall simply be adding to my, shall I say, large, well, I'm the eldest here. So I simply want to take advantage of that by saying that I have many more thoughts, I'm sure, because of course, as we go along, we also keep learning. And these examples that you've given are splendid examples of what is done at a particular level and the opportunities you make use of and what you are giving to your work. And I'm going to be particularly proud because all three of you, your papers, I can assure you, will be in the fall journal of our scholarly journal, which is I'm editor-in-chief of. So I just want you to know that I will be thinking of you, and I appreciate so much your taking your time, your efforts to come and share with us And I look forward to these names again. And thank you, all of you, for coming. And I want to thank our chief, who is always, she is available to me at any time that I am going to make an honor of this nature as the result each year of these particular competitions. This very one, which they were kind enough to simply because I came up with it, they put my name on it. So they call it that.
That's not entirely true. That's not entirely true.
So at any rate, I just want to say thank you. And I'll be thinking of each one of you, wishing the very best for you. And Chief Justice Tani, in spite of the fact that you are not at that point, you are at a different point. And I want to see all the recognition possible for you and for all the splendid ideas and the manner in which you conduct yourself, the manner in which you hold court. And I saw you as you became a Chief Justice. And I look back to that moment of our first glance to each other, and you came up to me so kindly to introduce yourself. And I appreciated that. And now I appreciate this opportunity in a very public way again to say we're very fortunate here in California, very fortunate. It's delightful to see you again. And I'm sorry that at this time, and contrary to all the other times we had when we were actually, as the rest of us were, meeting together, this time we can't just reach out and make a hug, which we know is practically our signal to each other.
Thank you, Selma. I don't have much to say except to tell you, of course, that I miss you. And it's wonderful to see you, even if on screen, and to hear your voice. I know that Kay and I have always enjoyed this celebration of the students who win the award, the terrific work of the Historical Society, but particularly, Selma, your leadership with this program that mentors young students. And they get to meet you. And I hope that all of you, if you have not already, that you Google Selma, because if I were to tell you about her background, we would be here till midnight, and I think she's only giving me a few minutes. And I will also say I thank Richard for his leadership, and Chris, because how important it is to have this focus. I'm also grateful that in looking at where you all hail from, this is truly a national winners, and your topics sound very exciting and provocative. So thank you. Thank you for this privilege of being able to share this celebration of these honors with you, with the great Selma M Smith.
Oh, thank you. You see,
Thank you.
that's the kind of, that's who we got. We can be so proud when I have national meetings. I'm so pleased and proud to be able to say, yes, I'm from California. And, oh, yes, well, whoever did mention, and I say, well, of course, I have our Tani. My closing words will be with Catherine, and she has gone with me from one to another of the occasions in which we have had our annual students competition. And on each occasion, she has added her good thoughts, her kindness, and it's the kind of friendship that it lasts and has over years, all on the board of directors in the California Supreme Court Historical Society. And so we like it or not, we become captive to our attributes, to our wishes, to our good thoughts for others. And I just wanted to say, if I could possibly do it all at one time, I would reach out and make a big hug and thank you for all your contributions.
Well, we
And
would
you will
reach out to you.
see, you will see your articles in the fall in our journal, and all of you will see your papers and you will see each other's. And I just want to tell you that you've made a bright day and a bright year and added to a bright life. Thank you so much to all of you. And Chris, thank you for guiding the process. And I just wanted to let you know that I expect that you will take my thank you back to your office. And Richard Rahm gets my absolute thanks, because not too many people who are scheduled for a thank you again for your moving out your personal, really personal attributes here. And I would say thank you. I hope you're never in that spot again. And I wish you well on your knee operation. And I'll have a good thought for you, as I'm sure we all will. I'm sure. We don't have the new date, but that's that. And thank you, thank you, thank you, in every language that ever existed, and one that comes only from the heart. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Selma. Actually, you remind me of just a quick anecdote. Once when I was working on an article for the California Legal History Journal, I was sent in my office sending emails to Selma around midnight, thinking that, sometime the next day, we would discuss them. Bam, immediately it would be returned at midnight. And then there would be emails waiting for me at 7 in the morning. So I don't know when she sleeps, but just absolutely incredible. So I wanted to thank you, Taylor, and congratulations. What a fantastic news. And thank you for your paper. I really enjoyed reading it. Likewise, Gus, thank you very much and congratulations. And then finally, Brittney, thank you so much for your paper. And then Chief, thank you for your remarks. Thank you for being here. Justice Berger, thank you so much. And again, Selma, thank you. Chris, thank you for putting this together. With that, I think we've concluded.
And have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
And also,
Oh, yes.
Definitely.
yes,
Definitely.
yes, I can't.
Bye now.
When
Bye-bye.
my heart is in it, there they go.
Take care. See you soon. Big hugs.
Bye-bye.